Before we start, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It was a chilly Sunday afternoon in Austin, Texas, when Vanessa dropped the manila envelope into my lap like it was a takeout menu. She was already smirking. "I figured this would save us both some time," she said, arms crossed, chin slightly tilted like she was the one doing me a favor. I looked up from the recliner, still wearing my weekend hoodie, coffee half finished on the side table, and opened the envelope without a word. Divorce papers. Clean, typed, with her signature already gleaming at the bottom like she'd been practicing it. "Oh, we're doing this now?" I asked evenly, flipping to the signature page with a casual calm I didn't feel yet. She nodded, slow and smug. "Unless you want to make it messy." Her voice dripped challenge, like she thought I'd crumble, yell, beg. But I didn't. I took the pen from the side table drawer, clicked it, and signed. No hesitation. No shaking hand. Just ink on paper. I stood, handed the papers back to her, and said in the same level tone, "Start packing." Her face twitched, a tiny flinch, barely visible, but I saw it. That wasn't the reaction she expected. She wanted chaos. She got closure. "Wait, are you serious?" she asked, her smirk faltering just enough to show the crack underneath. "You're not even gonna ask why?" I shrugged. "I already know why." That pushed her. Hard. She scoffed, louder now. "You're unbelievable. You really think you're just gonna brush this off and tell me to leave? You don't get to play that card, Richard." She spun on her heel and stormed down the hall toward the bedroom, slamming the door shut behind her with a click that echoed through the living room. Then the lock. I didn't chase. I didn't shout. I just walked into the garage, grabbed my toolbox, and returned to the hall. There was a silence behind the door, but it wasn't the silence of someone regrouping. It was the silence of someone who didn't expect me to follow through. I crouched calmly and began unscrewing the doorknob. Piece by piece. Quietly. Deliberately. No yelling, no dramatics, just action. Let her sit behind that door and think about what comes next. Let her realize that the man she thought she could break already saw this coming. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to fall apart. I was going to take my life back, one screw at a time. Because sometimes dignity doesn't come in loud exits or slammed doors. Sometimes it comes in calm hands and a clean signature. And this was just the beginning. The last screw dropped into my palm with a soft metallic clink, and the doorknob came free with a slow twist. I pushed the door open. Vanessa stood in the middle of the bedroom, arms folded tight, her phone clutched in one hand like it could shield her from reality. Her brows shot up as I walked in. "Are you kidding me? You broke into the room?" I didn't answer. I stepped past her, opened the closet, and pulled out her suitcases. The big one with the pink wheels, the carry-on that still had the Vegas luggage tag dangling from the handle. "Oh my God, Richard, stop. You're being ridiculous." I knelt and popped open the larger case. One hand on the zipper, the other reaching into the closet. Blouses, jackets, skirts, I folded nothing. Just grabbed and packed, methodical as a machine. She stepped closer, voice rising. "Okay, seriously. Enough. This was supposed to be funny." Still no reply. I grabbed the top shelf sweaters and shoved them in, her expensive perfume bottles clinking against each other as they rolled to the corners. "Hello? Richard." I said it was a joke. I paused just long enough to glance at her. "A joke," I said finally. My voice was quiet, flat. She softened instantly. "Yes, it was something dumb my friends dared me to do. It wasn't serious. I thought you'd laugh. I mean, come on. You didn't even ask me what was going on. You just signed them." I zipped the suitcase closed, stood, and walked to the dresser. I opened every drawer, yanked out the rest of her clothes, and started stacking them into the second suitcase. Her tone flipped again. "Seriously? You're really doing this? You're throwing me out over a prank?" The heels from the bottom of the closet went in next, followed by her scarves and the handbag collection she always insisted deserved its own closet space. "You didn't even wait for me to explain." "Because you already did," I said simply. She laughed, loud, forced. "Wow, you're not even going to let me fix it?" I stopped, looked at her dead in the eye. "You didn't come here to fix it. You came here to watch me break." That shut her up. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. The first real silence since I'd entered the room. The sun was just starting to edge above the rooftops by the time I wheeled the suitcases to the porch. The morning air was cold, sharp against my skin. Vanessa stood barefoot in the doorway, sweater pulled tight around her arms. A quiet ping from her phone. She glanced down. "Uber's here," she mumbled, suddenly small. The silver sedan rolled up, tires crunching the gravel. The driver stayed inside. I stepped forward, placed the suitcase carefully on the lawn, then set the carry-on beside it. She hovered on the edge of the porch. "You're really not going to say anything else?" I looked out at the yard. The trees were bare now, their branches thin against the winter sky. The grass was frosted over, untouched. Then I turned and went back inside. Didn't say a word. Didn't look back. The door clicked shut behind me. And that sound, that small, simple click, felt like a full stop at the end of a sentence I didn't want to keep writing. The morning after she left, the sun came up the same as always, pale and cold over South Austin. I was already at Cafe Pendleton, a quiet corner spot I'd visited every Sunday for the past 3 years. Same booth, same waitress, same order, black coffee, 2 eggs over medium, rye toast, no butter. That day, though, I brought a little extra piece with me. The kind that fills the silence when you finally stop pretending things aren't broken. I was halfway through my coffee, flipping through the paper like it was any other day, when I heard the front door chime. The soft jingle of it had always been background noise, until I heard their voices. Laughter. Loud. Familiar. Vanessa's trio, Mia, Darla, and Steph, walked in like they owned the air in the room. They spotted me immediately. Mia leaned in close to the hostess and pointed. "Oh, no need. We see our friend." I stayed seated. Took another slow sip of coffee. Darla sauntered up first, her coat still half on, lips painted like she was trying too hard. "Wow, you really are as cold as Vanessa said." Mia slid into the booth across from me without asking. Steph stood beside her, arms crossed like backup muscle, though all 110 pounds of her wasn't scaring anyone. "You kicked her out over a prank," Steph said. "Are you kidding?" Mia pulled her sunglasses off, tossed them on the table. "She said you signed the papers like a robot and didn't even argue. That's, like, beyond heartless." "She was crying," Darla added, flopping her purse down like she planned to stay a while. "Like really crying. And you just shut the door in her face?" I folded my newspaper and set it aside. "She sent me divorce papers. I signed them." Mia rolled her eyes. "It was a joke. Obviously. We were messing with her. We didn't think you'd actually take it seriously. Don't you know her at all?" I tilted my head, watching them. There was something kind of sad about the way they huddled together, like high school girls who hadn't realized graduation was over 10 years ago. "She said you were boring," Steph added. "Like, you never fight for anything." I smiled then. A slow, knowing kind of smile. "Then I guess the joke's on you." The words dropped like a coin in a silent room. They blinked, all 3 of them, caught off guard by how calm I was. How unbothered. I went back to my coffee, took another long sip, then leaned back in the booth. "You came here thinking I'd what? Apologize? Beg to explain myself? You thought I'd melt because the 3 of you showed up in matching attitudes?" Darla's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Mia bristled. "We just thought. You thought wrong." I set the mug down with a soft clink. "You thought she could throw papers at me like a tantrum and I'd hold her hand while she laughed about it later. That's not how this works." Steph crossed her arms tighter, clearly trying to hold her ground. "You didn't even try to fix it." I shrugged. She didn't want it fixed. She wanted attention. She got it, just not the kind she was expecting. The booth behind us went quiet. I noticed the older couple near the window glance our way. I didn't care. Let them hear. Mia stood, grabbing her sunglasses. "You're unbelievable." "No," I said. "I'm done being a joke." She turned on her heel, Darla and Steph trailing behind. No more comebacks. No more mockery. Just silence. They left the cafe exactly how they came in. Loud heels, fake perfume, and an overestimation of their own importance. I watched the door swing shut behind them, then motioned for the check. My breakfast had gone cold, but my coffee was still warm. And so was the satisfaction. The office smelled like fresh leather and new beginnings. Up on the 12th floor of a high-rise downtown, floor-to-ceiling windows stretched behind the long mahogany conference table. Austin's skyline glittered in the distance, crisp and cold against the winter morning. I sat with both palms on the table, watching as a manila folder slid across its surface. "Everything you asked for," said Brian, my private investigator. Mid-40s, former military, always carried himself like he was still on the job. We went back 6 months. That's where the pattern starts. My lawyer, Damon Keller sat beside me, flipping through his tablet. Calm, precise, expensive. The kind of man who never raised his voice. He just made sure yours was heard in court. I opened the folder. There were photos first. Grainy, but clear enough. Vanessa in a sundress I didn't recognize, climbing into a black SUV that definitely didn't belong to anyone she was supposed to be meeting. Her hand brushing against the driver's chest. Then another photo, same man, same hotel parking lot, different week. The timestamps didn't lie. Who's that? I asked, eyes still on the photo. Brian didn't even check his notes. That's Troy Mathers. Married to Darla. I nodded slowly. Turned the page. More photos. More nights. A second man. This time, she wasn't trying to hide. Vanessa and a tall guy. Slick hair, business casual. Laughing outside a wine bar. Her hand on his arm like she'd known him for years. That one, Brian said, anticipating the question. Matt Cole. Steph's husband. I let out a soft breath through my nose. Not a sigh, not surprise. Just confirmation. You expected this? Damon asked, glancing at me sideways. Worse, I said. I picked up one of the printouts, messages pulled from an old, synced backup Brian had found. Vanessa's words were all there in black and white. If Richard ever finds out, I'll just play the victim. He'll either blow up or shut down. Either way, I'll control the story. Troy says he might leave Darla, but I told him don't bother until I'm sure Richard's out of the picture. Matt's fun, and honestly, Steph has no idea what she's got. None of them do. I sat back in the chair, letting the words settle like dust across an untouched surface. Damon leaned forward, tapping one finger against the folder. This is enough to trigger multiple angles. Reputational damage, alienation of affection if we wanted to push civilly, or use it purely for leverage. Depends on what outcome you want. I met his eyes. I want them to know. Not just her. All of them. He nodded. Then we moved carefully, quietly, but deliberately. Brian folded his hands on the table. She had no idea we were watching. We kept the surveillance clean. No digital trails. She won't see it coming. I looked back down at the photos. Not because I needed more proof, but because I wanted to remember this moment. Not for revenge. For clarity. She wanted control, I said softly. Well, now we have it. Damon smiled faintly. You still want to keep this private? I nodded. For now. He closed his tablet. Then let's prepare. They'll never forget what calm truth feels like when it lands. The room fell quiet again, the kind of silence I liked. Professional. Controlled. Final. I was on the front porch that morning, trimming back the frozen stems on the old hydrangeas by the steps, when I heard the familiar click of heels against pavement. 3 voices. Laughing. Light. Rehearsed. Mia's voice came first. Well, if it isn't Mr. Emotional Damage Control himself. I straightened, wiped my hands on a towel, and turned toward them. Darla was wearing oversized sunglasses like she was shielding herself from a reality she didn't want to admit. Steph brought her coffee in a reusable cup that said, "Good vibes only," in bright gold lettering. Still doing the silent treatment thing? Mia said, smirking. It's honestly a little creepy, Richard. I stayed quiet. They made their way up the walkway like they owned the place, stopping just short of the porch steps. I could see they were putting on a show, not for me, but for each other. Darla waved a manicured hand toward the yard. So dramatic. Tossing her suitcase like some movie moment. It was just a prank, man. You really blew it out of proportion. Steph sipped her coffee. You made it public, not her. Now it's all over our group chats. You look like the one who lost it. I looked at them for a long moment, letting the cold air stretch between us. Then I spoke. You still don't know she's been seeing your husbands? All 3 froze. The laughter drained off their faces like someone hit a switch. Mia blinked. What are you talking about? I stepped back, opened the front door, and gestured inside. You should come in. I've got something for you. For a second, they didn't move. Just stood there, stunned, like they couldn't compute what I'd just said. Then Steph finally spoke. Wait, are you saying? I'm saying what I said. I turned and walked inside without waiting. I knew they'd follow. They always did. A minute later, the 3 of them stepped into the living room. Their tone completely changed. No giggles, no smugness. Just quiet heels on hardwood and sharp glances between them. I walked over to the coffee table, picked up the 3 envelopes I'd already prepared the night before, and handed one to each of them. You'll want to read those in private, I said calmly. Photos. Timestamps. Messages. Mia looked down at hers like it might explode. Darla's hands were already shaking. Wait, Steph said breathlessly, flipping the envelope open. This is from last month. That's Matt's car. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Their reactions told me everything. Mia dropped her envelope like it burned her fingers. Troy told me he was in Houston that night. He wasn't, I said. Darla sat down slowly on the edge of the armchair, blinking at a photo of Vanessa kissing her husband's neck outside the back entrance of a hotel. I don't understand. Why would she do this to us? You called it a joke, I said softly. She just kept playing. Steph sank onto the ottoman, eyes scanning a thread of messages between Vanessa and Matt. Her mouth opened once, then closed again. Nothing came out. For a long moment, the only sound in the room was the ticking of the wall clock. Then Mia stood, envelope clutched tight in her fist, and stared at me with hollow eyes. You planned this. You waited. I nodded. I did. And now what? You just want to humiliate us? No, I said simply. I want you to know who she really is. And who you've been defending. Darla stood, slow and unsteady. I need to go. Mia didn't argue. Steph didn't even say goodbye. They left the house in silence, not storming out, not stomping, just walking, like women who had no idea what world they'd just stepped into. I watched them through the glass as they reached their cars, their steps uncertain, heads down. Then I closed the door. No gloating, no shouting, just the weight of truth filling the space where deception used to live. It was just past 9 when my phone buzzed. I was sitting on the back patio, a blanket draped over my shoulders, the night air still and bitter with cold. The string lights above me swayed slightly in the breeze, giving everything a soft orange glow. I checked the screen. Vanessa. First time she'd texted since the day she left. I opened it. You smug, heartless bastard. You think you've won? You just destroyed my life. Are you proud of that? You think people are going to see you as some noble victim? You're a coward, Richard. A calculating coward. I read it twice. Then I turned the phone face down on the table and took another sip of tea. No reply. There wasn't a single word she could say that could pull me back into her storm. But hers wasn't the only voice traveling that night. Because by the next morning, the winds had changed in our little corner of Austin. People were talking, and they weren't just whispering. It started with Mia's husband, Calvin. I saw him 2 aisles over at the hardware store, staring at paint swatches with dead eyes. He didn't say a word, but he nodded at me, tight and quiet, like we both knew something heavy without needing to speak. That afternoon, I went to the local market, a small place tucked behind a bookstore and an old barber shop. I barely made it past the produce before I heard it. Is that him? Yeah, that's Richard. He's the one who found out. I heard he had everything in a folder, photos, messages, the whole thing. Wait. So Vanessa really was with 2 of their husbands. No, not 2. 3. And she forged a rental receipt to cover one of the hotel rooms. My cousin swears it's true. It was like wildfire. Every aisle had a new version of the story. I walked past the bakery section, where 2 women fell silent the moment I stepped near. One of them, I think her name was Kara, offered a tight, pitying smile. Hey, Richard. Holding up okay? I just nodded. I'm good. And I was. Because while everything was unraveling around Vanessa, the friendships, the reputations, the carefully curated version of herself she'd presented to everyone, I wasn't tangled in it anymore. I was just walking through it, untouched. I passed the freezer aisle, caught sight of myself in the reflection of the glass doors. Same jacket, same jeans, but something was different. I looked calm, not blank, not hollow, calm. Behind me, someone murmured my name again. A guy I barely recognized from a block party last spring stepped into my path. Thin beard, baseball cap, wore his nervousness like a coat 2 sizes too big. Hey man, he said. Just wanted to say, that was some serious strength. What you did. Heard you kept it real quiet until you had everything. That's rare. I gave him a polite nod. Appreciate it. He stepped aside, and I kept walking. This was the pattern for the next few days. At gas stations, coffee shops, the post office. People looked at me differently. Some respectful, some curious. A few unsure whether to treat me like the guy who uncovered a scandal or the guy who lived through it. But none of it mattered. Because my peace wasn't built on their approval. It was built on finally stepping out of the chaos. Not by yelling, not by throwing punches, but by refusing to carry what wasn't mine anymore. Let the rumors come. Let the masks fall. Let them all finally see what had been there the whole time. Me? I'd be at aisle 9, grabbing tea bags. Moving on with my life, one quiet step at a time. While we're here, please press like and let me know you're with me. It was late afternoon when I saw her silhouette through the frosted glass of the front door. I already knew who it was. The knock was soft, hesitant, the kind you use when you're not sure if you're welcome. I opened the door halfway. Vanessa stood there, sweater sleeves pulled down over her hands like she was trying to shrink herself. Her makeup was gone, eyes swollen and raw. Not angry this time. Just broken. She took a shaky breath. Can we talk? I didn't say anything. I just stepped out onto the porch and closed the door gently behind me, standing between her and the house. She glanced past me like she still belonged there, like the porch lights or the flower pots might welcome her back. I've been thinking, she said, her voice barely holding steady. Everything that's happened, it got out of hand. I know that. I stayed quiet. Let her fill the silence. Look, I messed up. I know that. I wasn't trying to hurt you, Richard. I was lost. But I don't want it to end like this. Not with us. She stepped closer. I found a counselor. She's good. Neutral. I thought maybe we could try therapy. Couples therapy. Just once. Please. I looked at her for a long moment. There were 1,000 things I could have said, but I only needed one. I don't need therapy, I said evenly. You do. She blinked fast, like she wasn't sure she'd heard me right. I'm serious, she said. We can still fix this. No, I replied. You want therapy so I can sit in a room and listen to you reframe everything. So you can cry in front of someone and spin it into some emotional misunderstanding. She took a step back, wounded. That's not fair. It's exactly fair, I said. You didn't just cheat, Vanessa. You planned. You manipulated. And when it all came out, you blamed me. Tears welled up again. She shook her head. I didn't know how to handle it. Everything crumbled so fast. My friends, your friends? I cut in, eyebrows raised. You mean the husbands you lied to and the wives you betrayed? You lit the match, Vanessa. Now you're choking on the smoke. She looked down, hugging herself like the cold had finally caught up to her. I didn't think it would all fall apart. It didn't fall apart, I said calmly. You kicked it apart, piece by piece. For a second, we just stood there, her trying not to collapse, me standing like I had nothing left to give. She reached out once, halfway to my arm, but pulled back. Please, she whispered. Just one session. One chance. I shook my head slowly. You already had every chance. What you're feeling now, that's the cost. Her breath hitched, but I opened the door behind me without another word. She stood frozen as I stepped back inside. Then I closed the door. Not with anger, just finality. Through the window, I watched her wipe her eyes with her sleeve, shoulders shaking. She stood there for a few seconds longer, waiting for the door to open again. It didn't, because healing wasn't something we could do together anymore. It was something I had already started, the moment I stopped letting her pain be my responsibility. It was Friday afternoon when the knock came, sharp, fast, and loud enough to rattle the glass. I opened the door and found Kyle standing there, fists clenched, jaw tight. He looked like he hadn't slept. Vanessa's younger brother, built like a linebacker, always the kind to barrel through problems instead of talk them out. He didn't wait for an invite. You think you're some kind of saint now? He growled, stepping closer. You humiliate my sister, throw her out in the cold, and now everybody in town's whispering about her like she's trash. I didn't react, just stepped aside and held the door open. He stared at me for a second, surprised maybe, but walked in. No yelling from me. No defensiveness. I just walked ahead of him to the dining table where the folder sat. Same one Brian had handed me. Still neatly arranged, still heavy with truth. Kyle stayed standing. His energy was twitchy, wired like he came in looking for a fight. I opened the folder and turned it toward him. Read. He glared at me. You really think throwing some photos at me is going to justify all this crap? I didn't answer. Just flipped the first page for him. Vanessa, with Matt, Steph's husband, outside the wine bar. He stared. Next page. Vanessa at a hotel parking lot with Troy, his hand on her waist, her lips on his neck. Then the texts. Kyle didn't sit down, but his posture started changing. He wasn't puffed up now. His fists unclenched. His eyebrows twitched once, then again. He flipped another page. Then another. And another. I stood still, watching. By the time he hit the last page, He wasn't breathing the same. His voice dropped. This can't be real. It's all real. He looked up slowly. She told me you were turning people against her. That you planted stories. I said nothing. I didn't need to. He glanced back down at the folder, ran a hand through his hair, and let out a sharp breath. She said it was one mistake, he muttered. One time. That's not one time, I replied. That's a system. Silence fell heavy between us. The kind that only exists when someone realizes they've been defending the wrong person. I didn't come here expecting this, Qley said finally. I came ready to throw you through that window, man. I nodded once. You're not the first. He gave a dry, humorless laugh and dropped into the chair across from me, hands covering his face. I didn't want to believe it, he whispered. She's my sister, you know? I've always protected her, even when she didn't deserve it. I leaned on the edge of the table, my voice even. You still can, but not by cleaning up after her. He didn't reply right away, just stared at the folder again, like it was something radioactive. After a while, he stood up and closed it gently. Then, with a voice quieter than I'd ever heard from him, he said, I'm sorry, man. I really didn't know. I nodded. He looked like he wanted to say more, but he didn't. He just turned and walked out, the front door clicking shut behind him. And for the first time since all of this began, I actually felt something close to peace. Not because he apologized, but because the truth, just standing there in black and white, had finally started to speak louder than her lies. It was just after dark when it happened. The neighborhood was quiet, porch lights glowing warm across trimmed lawns. I had just finished washing the dinner dishes when I heard the car tires screech outside. Then the pounding. 3 hits on the door, fast and hard. I opened it slowly. Vanessa stood there, wild-eyed, breathing fast, her hair a mess, mascara streaked down both cheeks. No more calm. No more calculated tears. Just chaos. You liar, she screamed, jabbing a finger toward my chest. You twisted everything. You set me up. I didn't respond. I just stepped out onto the porch and closed the door behind me. Neighbors' curtains were already starting to twitch open. A few porch lights flicked on down the block. You think you're so clever, she yelled, pacing in a half circle, arms flailing, turning everyone against me, making me look like the villain in your little story. She turned back toward me, her voice cracking. You showed Qley the folder, didn't you? Of course you did. He's not taking my calls. Darla blocked me. Steph told me I need help. And you just stand there like none of it matters. I said nothing. What did I ever do to deserve this? She sobbed, now on the edge of hysterics. I gave you everything, Richard. I carried this marriage for years while you just floated through it like some emotionally stunted robot. I folded my arms across my chest, eyes steady. You don't even deny it, she shrieked. You like this, don't you? Watching me fall apart while you sip your coffee and play the wise, wounded man. You're disgusting. A door opened across the street. Mr. Henley stepped out in his robe. 2 kids peeked out behind him. Vanessa didn't even notice. Say something, she screamed, her fists clenched tight at her sides. Come on, say something. But I didn't, because there was nothing left to say. That silence, the one she used to control, the one she used to dread, it was now mine. And it terrified her. The yelling continued for another minute until I heard it, sirens in the distance, then the unmistakable flash of red and blue bouncing off the siding. 2 squad cars pulled up. She spun around, seeing them, and suddenly changed tones like she could switch reality by voice alone. He's lying, she called out. This is emotional abuse. He's manipulating everyone. He made me look unstable. One of the officers stepped forward calmly. Ma'am, we received several calls about a disturbance. We need you to calm down. Vanessa turned to me again, eyes wide and red-rimmed. Tell them I'm not crazy. I looked at the officer, nodded once. I have a restraining order filed. Temporary, issued yesterday. He took a breath, then turned to his partner. Confirmed. We've got it on record. She's in violation. Vanessa froze. No, I didn't know, she stammered. I didn't get served, this isn't, but it was too late. The second officer gently but firmly took her wrist. Ma'am, I'm going to have to place you under arrest for violation of a protective order. Her voice cracked open as they cuffed her. This isn't happening. This can't be happening. She turned her head as they walked her toward the cruiser, tears streaking her already ruined makeup. And for the first time, I didn't feel anything. No pity, no hate, No victory, just stillness. She looked back one last time, eyes pleading. But I didn't move. I stood on the porch, arms folded, watching the cruiser door close. The flashing lights faded down the block. The neighbors went back inside. The night went quiet again. I walked back in, locked the door behind me. And for the first time in a long, long time, the house finally felt like mine. The courthouse was colder than usual that morning. Marble floors, high ceilings, and that faint echo of footsteps that made every movement feel heavier than it was. I sat alone on the left side of the courtroom. Damon, my lawyer, leaned over and handed me a copy of the restraining order petition. We didn't need to say much. The night she came unhinged had said it all for us. Vanessa didn't show. Her attorney stood, made a brief and tired argument about emotional distress and temporary confusion, but Judge Keller didn't even blink. She'd seen it all before, the outbursts, the rewritten narratives. I've reviewed the footage, the complaint, and the prior incidents, the judge said flatly. Mr. Hartman, you are granted a formal restraining order effective immediately. The defendant is to remain at least 300 feet from your home, your workplace, and any event where you are present. Gavel dropped. Just like that, it was done. I stepped out into the winter air, pulled my coat tighter around me, and took a deep breath. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like exhale. That evening, I went to the community holiday party at a friend's house by the lake. I hadn't planned on staying long. I just wanted to show my face, make it clear that my life, hadn't stopped. The room buzzed with lights, clinking glasses, soft Christmas music playing behind conversations. I was by the fireplace with a glass of cider when they approached. Mia, Darla, Steph. Not in heels this time. No makeup masks. Just 3 women who looked like they'd aged 10 years in 2 weeks. Mia spoke first. I just wanted to say we were wrong. Darla added. All the jokes, the judgment. We didn't see what was really happening. Steph stepped forward, holding out a small wrapped box. It's just cookies. But they're yours. No strings. I looked at them, not with anger, not even with satisfaction. Just understanding. You defended her, I said. I get it. I used to do that too. They nodded slowly, eyes down, ashamed, but present. I gave a small smile. Thanks for saying it. That was all. No grand speech. No awkward hugs. Just peace. I set the box on the table, turned back to the fire, and let the warmth settle into my bones. The apartment is smaller than the old house, quieter, simpler. It sits just a few blocks from the lake, where the mornings come in soft and silver. That's where I go most days now. I take my coffee in a travel mug, walk the trail near the water, nod to joggers, breathe in the calm I never knew I was missing. The fireplace clicks on with a switch here. No more stacking wood, no more sweeping ashes. Just warmth when I need it. And peace, constant, uninterrupted peace. It had been almost 6 months since everything unraveled. Or maybe the better word was unfolded. Because the truth had been there the whole time. Folded behind charm, behind jokes, behind a woman who believed consequences were optional. Not anymore. Today was my birthday. A quiet one. No big plans. No calls expected. Just me, a worn book in my lap, and a gentle snowfall tapping the window. Until the knock. When I opened the door, no one was there. Just a square package on the welcome mat, wrapped in plain brown paper, tied with twine. No card. I brought it inside, placed it on the coffee table, and opened it. Inside, a photo album. Black leather cover. Embossed in gold on the front. Thank you for the truth. I flipped it open. The first page was a note, written in 3 different handwritings. You didn't just walk away. You opened our eyes. We believed lies because they were easier. Thank you for showing us what courage looks like. You saved us more than you know. Mia, Darla, Steph. The next pages were photos, not of Vanessa, not of the mess, but of them. With their kids. Their new apartments. Quiet smiles. New beginnings. No explanations. Just moments. And in the back, one last message. Most people blow up the bridge on their way out. You left the road clear so we could follow. Happy birthday. I sat there for a while, fingers resting on the last page, the weight of it settling in. Not anger. Not pride. Just peace. I closed the album and set it beside the fire. Outside, the snow kept falling. And inside, for the first time in a long time, I felt like I'd finally come home. And that was the end of my story. I keep thinking about Kyle. How he walked into my house ready to throw punches, but left in silence after facing the truth about his sister. He could have stayed blind like the rest, but he chose to see. What would you have done in his place? Let me know in the comments. I read every one. And if this story made you feel something, hit that like button and subscribe for more.